flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may make a few revisions. Section 5C, Economic Development Committee meets 5:15 at 6 p.m. here in the library.
Okay.
Which changed today. I would also request that the board table indefinitely item 6C, Selectmen's consideration to allocate the FEMA funds. The way that that's worded after further research, the board doesn't have the jurisdiction to allocate those funds in that way. Those funds will be needed to be allocated directly to the FEMA account and then the natural disaster account, and then they can be allocated as they wish. Item 7A, I spelled May wrong. It should be M-A-Y. And I would ask that we add item B, which is a discussion of limiting occupancy of camper trailers. And item C, a discussion on Eastern Trail parking. My apologies.
Okay.
The motion approved. Second.
All in favor? Alrighty. Public forum.
Where's that?
Any member of the public who would like to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so now. Donna?
Just quickly, this Thursday in the library at 7 o'clock, the Historical Society is going to host a get-together of interested parties for what will hopefully be a fall Arundel Day celebration yet to be officially named. So if you can think of anybody that we might not have thought of to invite, let them know that we're going to be here and want some ideas and input and a lot of volunteering this Thursday, the 16th.
Here now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I invited the PTA. I went to their meeting last week and I invited them and asked them to also reach out and invite anyone they thought might be interested to come to the meeting.
Well, so far, everybody that I know who has been contacted has said yes, they'll be here. So that's a good sign.
7, yeah. Okay. Anything else under public forum? All right. Approve the minutes of April 22nd.
I apologize for not including them in the packet. There were some revisions anyway, so.
Under item 8, that any other business and adjournment, Dan DuBois stated he received about people he received, is that a complaint? A call?
Info, yeah.
A call?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion approved as amended.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay. Committee and board reports.
Tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Arundel Fire Station, there will be a municipal referendum election to validate the RSU number 21 budget. Once again, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. All Arundel residents who are registered to vote are welcome to come and vote. Or come and register to vote. The planning board will meet on May 23rd at 7 p.m. here in the library. And once again, the Economic Development Committee will meet tomorrow evening at Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock here in the library.
I have a planning
Did you
board
see it?
update. April 25th meeting, the planning board did a preliminary site plan review for one of the machine tool company. We proposed to construct a 2,000 square foot standalone garage, kind of off of the building to store some of their landscaping stuff and, non-power, just a garage kind of sitting there. They looked at some land use revisions on estate lots for the BI and HC districts. Apparently when the planning board did the estate lots a while back, it's not allowed in the BI and HC district, and that kind of handcuffed residents on the Proctor Road. So they're looking at fixing that. Tad was going to do some wordsmithing. I know they had a meeting last week I didn't make, so I'm not sure if he had that squared away or not. And then they started looking at Downtown Business District 2. They started reviewing of the uses, both the prohibited uses and the conditional uses.
Anything else on that? Okay, we'll move on to new business. Selectmen authorize a journal entry to allocate MMA safety grant funds to the Public Works, Tools, and Equipment budget line.
This is a standard request. Typically, these funds are placed into the general fund when we receive MMA grant funds or any other type of funding like that. There is an article on the town meeting warrant that asks, shall the town vote to accept and spend as deemed by the Board of Selectmen to be in the best interest of the town, any and all grant monies awarded to the town of Arundel by the United States government and or state of Maine under CDBG, Land and Water, and any other similar grant programs in the upcoming fiscal year. Typically, it doesn't run into being an issue. Last year, this safety grant was deposited directly into the general fund. With the heavy winter that we've had this year, public works funds are dwindling, and I would request that the selectmen authorize that transfer.
Make a motion, we authorize transfer of $1,879.33.
Okay. As requested from
Town manager.
the safety grant funds to the Public Works, Tools, and Equipment line.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made. We have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? There you go. And Selectmen's consideration of approval transfer of $10,000 from the National Disaster Reserve Fund to the Public Works overtime budget line and the Public Works fuel budget for expenses related to Winter Storm Nemo.
I realize we don't have a line item budget here in Arundel, but the bottom line is going to be fairly close. I had a conversation with Roger last week and the week before about the fact that it's going to be coming down to the wire. Where this was a declared disaster on February 8th and 9th, they didn't announce winter storms are named, Winter Storm Nemo. There is $10,585.01 in the Natural Disaster Reserve. The charges to FEMA in total were $29,000. We stand to get reimbursed $21,000 of that. And I would recommend the board ask Roger any questions that you may have. I do believe it would be in the best interest of the Public Works Department to free up some funds so that they don't have to spend the rest of this spring painting plows. Painting plows, greasing the air.
That's about all we get enough money for is cleaning and painting snowplows.
It's cheap.
Fuel line, the overtime as well, and vehicle maintenance. Mostly because of the winter, are shot. So,
typically what we try to do this time of year is, if there is funding that's remaining from a mild winter, Roger will purchase supplies for the next winter to have them in stock, and that won't happen this year amongst other things, with the low funding in that.
Okay.
Will that, once we get the money from the,
Once we get reimbursed from FEMA, that will go back into the natural disaster reserve account, so that we're ready for another disaster when it happens.
but his budget is still, it doesn't change his budget? In other words, that, from that storm, is his budget low just because of that storm? Was his budget gone because of other things that happened throughout, because of the long winter itself? Or
It
so
wasn't
it's not going to replenish his budget?
correct. It wasn't just that storm. It was the heavy winter, but where it was a declared disaster, that's the specific use of that reserve account. And it's where there was a disaster, there were 48 hours straight of everybody being on duty. That didn't take quite a hit to his account.
So where does that put us through? You know, we put together a budget.
Yep.
It's going to the voters in June. And
Correct.
you just mentioned that usually Roger goes and he buys supplies. I mean, are we all set with that, or are we gonna have a shortfall for next year?
I think that will be on
Does
track.
anybody know how much it's gonna snow?
Well, I understand that.
There
but,
you go.
know, what you normally purchase and what you normally foresee, I mean, are we gonna be at a,
I think we've proposed a fair budget. I mean, historically, Roger's been right about average. I mean, it's amazing. The meticulous records he keeps are absolutely amazing. And I think that what we've budgeted for next year will be able to cover, unless if it's a ridiculously harsh winter, the funding is there for what Roger needs.
Any other questions?
I mean, we approved the transfer of $10,000 from natural disaster reserve funds to the public works overtime budget line and fuel budget line.
Okay, motion's been made, do we have a second?
second?
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor? There we go. And we're skipping C.
That's correct.
D, Selectmen authorize transfer of $2,100 from the contingency account to police protection account to cover unanticipated increase in health and benefits associated with the York County Sheriff's Office contract.
I was able to negotiate, initially this was a $4,100 discrepancy. I was able to negotiate with the Sheriff's Department to meet us halfway. This is due to health and benefits that were increased, and as stated at the last meeting, it's part of our contract that we need to absorb any increases due to health benefits or salary. This salary was not as large of a portion of this as I had thought initially after speaking with the treasurer of the county. The majority of it is health and benefits and costs that were increased due to that. In the event that we don't, if the selectmen don't approve this transfer, we won't have the funding. We'll be $2,100 short to cover our contractual obligation with the Sheriff's Department.
So when we changed deputies, we didn't get any decrease in pay? I mean, we didn't save any money in payroll?
Not in payroll,
The
no.
other way.
There was, I believe, 23-cent salary increase.
Increase. So are they going to absorb the other, or are we going to be picking that up?
No, they are going to absorb the other
They're not
portion of that.
absorbing. Any questions? Do you have a question?
When does the contract expire again?
After this year, it'll be 3 more years. It's a 5-year contract.
2016.
Yes.
I make a motion that we authorize the transfer of $2,100 from the contingency account to the police protection account.
Second that.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Up update the selectmen on the zip code change request process.
I apologize for talking out of school on this matter. It is not the legislature that we petition. We have to write a letter to the U.S. Postal Service in Washington, D.C., justifying why we're asking for the change in zip code, the governing body's authority to do so. They do a survey of the community, the residents in the community, get the pulse of what those residents feel, if it would be beneficial or not, and then they also do an analysis of what the cost would be to the Postal Service for changing that zip code. So far, the poll that I have online, I believe last I checked when I left the office today, it was 68% in favor. That may sound like an overwhelming majority, but there's been 55 responses. So Tad and I are working on a letter to the Postal Service, and I will also draft a cover letter to be signed at the next meeting. That when we mail the packet to have them consider the request, there will be a signature of the Board of Selectmen on that letter. There's no guarantee it's going to happen. I've had conversations with Senator King's office that made it sound like it'll be a bit of an uphill battle. Tad has had conversations with Senator Collins' office to make it sound like it won't be a very big problem. So I can expect some pushback, and I'm sure there'll be some questions that we'll have to answer, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I would like to get the process moving. If you have any further questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions. Anyone have any questions, any comments? Yes?
So will there be, did you say there is going to be expense now?
No expense to the town.
Okay.
The Postal Service does an analysis as to what the costs associated to the post office are before they make a decision as to whether or not they allow it to happen. So if it would cost the Postal Service an additional $300,000 a year, and I'm just pulling that number out of my head, they would more than likely deny that request.
Okay.
I
Thank
have
you.
a question.
John?
You people, you selectmen there, you were in favor of changing this or letting that committee go forward. Why didn't you have a straw vote to see what the people of the town wanted? You just took it up on yourself to do it? I mean, it's a close call. Why didn't you have a survey to see what the people of the town wanted?
You were here at the last meeting, Tom?
I was.
We had a discussion about that, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
I thought we discussed why we were making that decision. We thought it was.
Because you have a right to.
It's a policy, we thought it was a policy decision,
Yeah.
and we're elected to make policy decisions, and we made the decision.
But I think, what I'm just saying now, I think you should have had a survey to see what the people of the town wanted. And not
I think we also.
because that was suggested too.
Right, as it was. But I think also we discussed this was going to be fairly time consuming in any event, and we would have the opportunity to gain the opinion of the electorate or the citizenry, and if it was overwhelmingly opposed, we would probably change directions. And it sounds like we were going to have plenty of time to work that thing through. We just want to get the process going.
Yeah.
We have
What is
had multiple requests to not only have our own zip code, but also our own post office. And multiple times we have checked with the Postal Service and been turned down to have our own post office, not our own zip code. I know years ago when the town had our mail came through 5 different post offices, and depending on where you lived in town, you could have had one of 5 different zip codes. And they at least put everything under one post office and one zip code. And we've still had requests even since then from different parties to have our own post office and our own zip code. We know we'd never get our own post office.
It seems to be, I don't know how to say that, but just a few people that want to push that agenda. And I don't think everybody in town wants that.
Well, I think as it goes forward, we'll find out. Melanie?
I think it makes sense to have our own zip code, because if you do a search on the internet for Arundel, everything comes up, Kennebunkport. Even like if you are looking at real estate and you want to see what's for real estate in Arundel, you get all of Kennebunkport's in there too. And it's an identifying, something that would identify Arundel as a community, which could also potentially attract more businesses. I think it would make economic fiscal sense to have it just for that reason.
That was the presentation we got from the Economic Development, as succinctly as you put it, for the same reasons. That's why we decided to move forward with it, I think. Yeah.
Donna?
All I was going to throw into the mix was that when I first heard about this, the first thought I had was about expense to businesses and residents. Because people have letterheads, they have business cards, they have all sorts of printed material that have the current zip code on, and that's going to require a change. So I think that cost is also something that should be factored in as people think about this.
That was part of our discussion we had last week. And
I wish I had been at the last meeting, but
the thing is, if we got a zip code, they gave us a zip code, you would still be able to have your old letterhead, your old, for at least a year's time to give you an opportunity to, go through some of the stuff that you had. So it's not, it is an incurred cost, but it's not something that would have to happen right away, and businesses, individuals would have time to plan for that.
I can remember when 911, they redid all of that, and I lived in a community where they changed everybody's address, and several times, because they didn't get it right the first time. So we had to change our address through all of our accounts and everything, and we did that 3 times, I think, with the 911, and it's not a nice thing to do, but it's, in the end, I think the outcome will be best.
Okay. Yes?
Todd, did you say you could go online and there's a survey that you put out there?
Yeah, if you go to the Town Arundel website, right on the home page,
Okay.
the very top of the left-hand sidebar, it says online poll, and
Okay.
people can go there and do the survey. And as I said, as of this afternoon, before I left the office, there were 55 responses, but it was 68% in favor. So if you wanted to make some reference to that,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
people could go on there.
Get some
Okay,
people on
you
there.
want that? Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions? All right, moving on. Selectmen authorize the town manager to sign the contract extension with Casella Waste for operation of the town transfer station for the 2013-14 fiscal year.
This will be the second extension of the contract. There was no increase in cost to the town. There is a rider in that contract that states if fuel costs get to a certain point, we will be responsible for the additional costs. But in my opinion, I think Casella is doing a fine job at the transfer station. Stu and I have been meeting on different ideas of different ways to service the community at less of a cost to either the taxpayer or to the resident. There's a bunch of different options. There's a lot of new technologies that are coming out. A lot of them are capital heavy at the front end. So at some point in time, Stu would come in and speak to the board of selectmen, and we can find an idea that will work for the town. As I told Tom, his initial response to raising the per pound cost was that our tonnage would go down, and that may end up costing us more in the long run. But Stu is looking into that to see if there's something that they can do to reduce the actual contract cost to a run.
I had one complaint a week and a half ago. Someone who went up there on a Saturday with demolition debris, and it was full.
Luckily, that person has another vehicle, because that person was in my office Monday morning to let me know.
Yeah.
But Stu, that's another really good thing about the transfer station is I call Stu at his office and he takes care of that stuff right away. So typically I don't receive a lot of complaints. They seem to come, I don't know if it's the temperament of the individual working that day or what it is, but they seem to come in spurts. So this past week I got a couple of complaints, but they usually Stu addresses them right away. So.
Does he have a schedule for emptying that demolition debris container?
Yes, and there was some, I don't know if it was a technical failure or a truck went down or something. There was a reason why they couldn't make it to do that pickup. And that was also, he said there was much heavier use in the time frame that we usually do. So yeah, I'm going to take care of that. He's going to address and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Like the paper bin at Christmas being full of cardboard.
Exactly, and I explained to him that resident's, concern is that if I didn't have another vehicle, I'd either have to dump this out or ride around all week with that junk in my truck, so he's very understanding, and I believe he said he'd reach out to the people who might complain to let them know that they're taking care of the issue.
All right, do we have a motion on this?
Yeah, so.
I'll second it.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Selectmen review and approve the town meeting warrant for June 11th and 12th, 2013.
I've read it about 18 times, Simone's probably read it more than that. When you go over it, I hope that we have all the typographical errors. I've checked and double checked the figures in the warrant articles. I believe that everything you see here is correct, to the best of my ability.
Article 28, though.
Yes.
Article reads $1,588,671.
Correct.
Budget board's recommending $1,598,671.
Correct. I believe that's...
If you wanted an option to have the budget board's number, you
Yeah,
had
they're
to,
going to change it here.
and we have to flip the
And change
narrative
it.
around in terms
Yes.
of,
Absolutely. Oh.
this is understood as far as the library is concerned, the vote can only be for the dollars, not for this establishment of this scholarship or ERSCO. That's fine. Budget board's recommending $350.
And that is not acceptable?
I mean, a member of the budget board can certainly move to reduce the appropriation to $350, but that's all you can do at town meeting, I think. You could move also to establish a scholarship fund. At that point. I mean, you could do it, but you have to change the article or have another article.
It's right there.
When does this have to be, when's the latest date for approvals?
The next meeting.
The next meeting?
Needs to be posted at least 7 days before. We're just kind of trying to finalize it so we can go in the town before book.
So you were thinking to change that article, the library article, so that it reads 12, but down here in the body of it, you're going to change that?
What I'll do is I will just leave it as last year's appropriation was 0, and what I'll more than likely do is either Article 20B, or I'll renumber these articles and come up with language that would default in the event that there was a vote for from less than $12,000 on the library. I'll consult with the attorney to make sure we get that wording correct.
And maybe I'll bring it up when we get to it, but I know at the last meeting we had talked about the ordinance for the camper or the health and safety, whether that had to go to town vote.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, so not sure if we've got time to square this off or not, but we ought to, if we can make it, to add it to the warrant for the next meeting.
What happened to the TIF district?
The TIF district is still being worked on. CDBG and that are back and forth with the PUC right now, so it's going to be delayed again. committee.
Okay.
But we are working towards that. We're getting figures from the chief, and it's being compiled. It just won't make it to June.
Okay, so that's gonna be changed. We'll go on to the next one right at the moment. The selectmen's authorization to change the statutory business hours for the June 11th municipal elections. I think that Simone's, yeah. So that they can waive the evening hours,
That's correct.
yeah, okay.
Can we approve that?
Second?
All in favor? There you go. Update selectmen on the MLD Facilities Committee meeting and request for appointment of a member of the board to the committee.
Sorry, Norma. For
Then,
those of you who didn't get my email, I attended the last MLD Facilities Committee meeting. There's a memorandum in your packet in regards to the sinking of the building. It has sunk approximately, the D-wing has settled over 10 inches, and about 18.5 inches in the southeast corner. So at the last meeting, what was recommended was that the committee create a recommendation to the full RSU board to construct a new gymnasium and additions similar to those that were being proposed at the consolidated school in Kennebunkport. I haven't received the full document yet on the surveying and the engineering about the actual property. That's supposed to be forthcoming from Harriman Engineering and Gillespie Engineering. And down Coulomb, the surveyors are going to survey the A and B sections to make sure that those are still level and in good shape, but the initial indication was there was no settling on that section of the building. It's the section that we're in and the D-wing. So what they would propose initially and preliminarily, they had proposed that anything that be built be not done as an addition to this, the sinking wings, these sections. Anything that be built on piling so that they can get down to bedrock and prevent this from happening again. But there will be meetings scheduled within, they had said within a week, within a month, so I would expect within the next few weeks there will be a meeting scheduled to fill us in on what's going on. And I just did put a recommendation in there that maybe there would be a member of the Board of Selectmen who would be interested in sitting in on those committees. I know that I will begin attending all of the meetings that I can. There's no danger. There's no immediate imminent danger of collapse. The building is structurally sound, but they do need to pay attention to the snow loads on the roof, and they're also going to be monitoring very closely what's going on with the building so that nobody's placed in danger.
18 inches?
18 inches.
18 inches.
How come there isn't a giant crack in that?
There
They
is.
have rubber tile instead of VCT when they did the building. That was one of the things the architect commented on, is that it was a good thing they weren't vinyl composite because all the tiles would be snapped in there. But it's that southeast corner, so the very far corner is the one that's sinking the most. I mean, I don't know where there's an expansion joint. I've never really been able to find that area where that separation is happening, but
There's something in the kitchen too, right? There's a, my sister was saying that there's like a...
this section with these glue lamb beams is moving uniformly. The D-wing, this is the C-wing, that's the D-wing. The D-wing slowed a little, the C-wing started catching up, and so they're not, it's not racking to the point of breaking, but they just want to monitor. Jack was at the meeting as well. I don't know if you have anything to add that I missed, Jack, but it's pretty interesting to see that a building of this size, they said that if we were to try to construct something on this site, remove those structures, we'd have to preload this site for 18 months before we could ensure that all the moisture and all the porosity of the clay was out so that we could build something. So they plan to move forward with pilings if they can't find a spot. I mean, there's 55 feet of clay back there according to the surveys that we saw. A lot of play down there.
It's gonna be an expensive.
A couple of comments, if I may. One, to reiterate, we were hearing that the building and this wing and the gym are structurally safe, but there's concern about future snow loads and the inability to insulate the gym and this piece of the sea wing, simply because if you insulate it, then more snow can collect, and the weight could destroy the building. But, if you've got real heavy snow conditions, you're not going to have kids in school anyhow.
And facilities does come and shovel the roofs off as soon as there's 2 feet of snow, I believe, on the roof was.
Yes, it was. It was shoveled off during that last large storm. I think the other thing is, that it's obviously considerably greater cost to add or to replace the 2 buildings, and with it, add a cafeteria and a kitchen.
Yes.
And so it's going to be, in my opinion, a tough call. The Facilities Committee, looking at all 3 buildings, is getting more and more concerned about the size of the potential cost to the communities, and so when this all gets finalized, then they're going to have to take a very, very close look at it and see what makes sense.
Would someone like to volunteer to be on that committee?
I wasn't gonna ask.
When do they meet?
I don't know when they typically meet, 5:30 in the afternoon, so you might be out on that one. Is that a typical meeting time, Jack? That the meeting?
Yes, the 2 committees meet the same night, one for consolidated, one for here. Consolidated's plans are pretty much finished.
Yeah.
It's really this and the high school that are still kind of in process. I think that time is now a little bit adjustable based on the availability of not only citizens, but the principal here and any other people that are involved. So, could it be 6 o'clock? Sure, I would think so. Just need to, and the architect, of course, is involved as well. It's just a matter of getting it scheduled when everybody can do it.
So there's no set date or days or week right now.
Pardon?
There hasn't been a set day of the week.
No, not for the next meeting yet, no.
Yeah, I would be interested in,
Let me get a little more information
in a
on
lot of it, but I can't commit to every meeting.
Right. I'll get some more information when I'm aware of the next meeting. I'll just inform you, and if somebody can, I'll go. I'll give a report to the committee, and then maybe in July we can try again.
Maybe we can do it by committee, and just, I can make it this week, you can whatever, or something like that.
As long as I think a representative of the
Yeah.
town is at the meetings, will be better served.
And perhaps have one of us at each meeting. We might not all be able to make every meeting, but if one of us would be at each meeting.
I have a question.
Ellen?
Sorry, going back, but the original building plans when we were building MLD, does anybody know where those plans are?
Before I came, I know they scoured town hall. I was told by the architect that John looked through the vaults, through the code files. Nobody has a copy of the engineering of this building, and Alliance or Allied Construction is the company that used to build these type of buildings, and they, I believe the architect said 5 or so years ago, just culled all of their files because they were consolidating what they had. So there is no actual engineering data on this building that we've been able to locate.
Because the gymnasium floor, I thought that was a floating floor. So it would go up and down.
Would assume that that.
No, that's just a,
It's not.
no. There's that material just laid over that, the concrete. It's there. Used to be a lot springier.
Yeah, for some reason, somebody
Doesn't float.
mentioned to me that it was a floating floor, and I can't remember who it was, but, yeah, it'd be nice if we could find one to locate some of that stuff.
And look at the plans that we did, the renovations here, there, who did that, Siemens? Yeah, Siemens?
Unfortunately, when the RSU consolidated, they wanted to do this facilities study, and they came to the town office, and I gave them a drawer full of files that they were supposed to return,
Oh,
and I've yet to receive anything back, and we requested it a couple of times to get our files back. I don't know if, Harriman still has them, or, because I thought they were gonna just copy them and return them.
I was told the RSU has them. Harriman copied everything that they could from the RSU. They have copies of it, but they don't have the originals. So I assume that that would be in the RSU's hands.
We need to get those back, because otherwise we'll lose them, unfortunately, because even the school had issues with things that they would check with us because they didn't have them, so.
Would you check on that and see?
Certainly.
Get those back for us. Alrighty. And inform the selectmen of Greg Copeland's resignation from the planning board.
Greg's moving to Portland. I don't have an official letter of resignation, but I did email back and forth with him Thursday, and he will be getting me a letter of resignation. So if you know of anybody who is or may be interested and may be qualified for the planning board, I would accept any and all recommendations. I've spoken to a few individuals so far. Nobody's been willing to commit as of yet. So, Dan, you said you may know of someone. If you could try to get them in touch with me, I could have a conversation and we could try to move forward on something.
Okay, treasurer's report.
The treasurer's report is in your possession. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Another 48 or so days, I think we're going to make it.
See where I had anything marked up on that. Okay, review and sign the AP and payroll warrants. We can do that now, we did your transfers, Marty?
Yes, please.
All right, do we have a motion
So move.
and a second?
Second.
This must be our county taxes on here.
The school.
County of York,
Oh, how much is it?
$46,590.53.
That is the remainder of the contract and the cruiser payment.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, no, I see our issue, that's.
No.
yeah.
There you go. Did we vote on that? All in favor?
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Before you come into executive session,
We're just talking about it.
oh, okay. I didn't know if there'd be any way to kind of firm up the warrants so that we can get it into the town report book by like emailing it to everybody and having, like, I know you had a question about number 28 and about the library.
Yeah. I think what I'll do is, after we have the discussion of the camper trailers as suggested by Selectman DuBois, we'll get an approval of the agenda, of the warrant, except for 2 items, and we can change that language, and hopefully be able to firm that up before next week. We know the ones we need to get done.
Okay, I just didn't know, because I hate to change the language too much from
Right.
the town report book, otherwise people get confused when they get to town meeting.
When are you sending those out to be printed?
They should have gone out Friday. Probably Wednesday is what I was shooting for.
Okay.
After the election. It takes them 2 weeks, and we have to have them legally 7 days before the meeting. So we usually shoot for Memorial Day, but I think it'll be a little bit after probably, but they take, and they're really good about putting in 2 weeks.
Okay. And inform the selectmen of the executive session to be held at the March 28th meeting for the manager's annual review.
I spelled it wrong.
I think.
No, it says May.
Oh.
It should be May, not March.
You're right, way late.
Gee, I think we had that meeting on March 28th. You weren't here, you missed the whole meeting.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Still here. Oh, by the way.
Yeah. Under B, limiting occupancy on camping trailers.
I provided you with a sample ordinance that we found, Tad was able to find in Williston, North Dakota. Old Orchard Beach's ordinances have been hacked and taken apart. They do an online code of ordinances now, and they break their things down a little different than we do. And there were really no examples that I could find through Maine Municipal Association or the Maine Town and City Manager Association that would apply to the town of Arundel. The problem that we have here is, as this ordinance sits, there would need to be revisions made to accommodate for Red Apple Campground, for Hemlock Grove Campground. I'm going to kick myself in order. That means we would have to have a provision in there that refers to rented sites or campgrounds. This was brought to Dan's attention by a member of the public. Since I've been here, this is the only situation of this problem that we've had. The problem with enforcing this ordinance is going to be the determination of what occupy is. And I'm not trying to be difficult here, but I'll use my example, is I have a camper trailer and I leave it open in the summertime. Like, we'll go camping, I'll leave it open, the kids like to play in there. Well, they play there during the day, but they're not occupying it. If we were to enact an ordinance like this in Arundel, Jim works 8 to 4:30 Monday through Thursday. So we would either have to change hours if there was an issue for verifying whether or not people are staying in these camper trailers consistently, if they're occupying them, if they're using them recreationally. So there will be a lot of bits and pieces to this ordinance that are going to have to be tailored to the town of Arundel. That's the recommendation that I have. Jim and I have spoken. Jim and I are going to speak to the state of Maine about the alleged disposal of waste on the surface of the property. That we can address immediately. That doesn't take a special ordinance. And once again, it usually turns into a he said, she said, unless we have hard, fast, and true evidence that this is what's going on. I'm just hazarding caution that in proposing an ordinance like this, it may require more inspection on Jim's part. That's just the other side of an ordinance such as this. If the full board would like me, or if the majority of the board would like us to try to draft an ordinance such as this for the town of Arundel by May 28th, Tad and I will be very happy to try to get that done, and hopefully it'll address all the issues that we're dealing with and all of the exceptions that we have to deal with as well.
We don't have a definition of the term occupy in our building permit, building codes, and ordinances anywhere.
Building codes there is, but the problem is that a camper trailer isn't considered a structure, so our building codes don't apply to a camper trailer because it's not a building. It is a recreational vehicle. It can be moved. Whether or not they are moved is another question, but they can be moved. Shoreland zoning ordinances have 180-day restrictions where you can't keep a camper trailer, an RV, a motorhome within the shoreland zone connected to appurtenances of a home, such as sewer and electric, for more than 180 days. In looking at the ordinances, that's the closest that I can find to anything that we reference camper trailers or occupying recreational vehicles. So it'll be a difficult one to draft because of the seasonals that we have. We'll have to have an exemption, and we'll have to have definitions of what a seasonal is, where they're allowed to be, and how they're allowed to do that. But if it's the direction of the board, Ted, and I will have that done for you by the May 28th meeting, I will have to add that to the town meeting warrant.
I mean, to me, if it's gonna be seasonal, if I have a friend in Florida that's gonna come up and park their mobile home on my backyard, or their camper trailer in my backyard for the summer, and I'm gonna provide them with electricity and septic, it would just seem to me that they would, that would have to meet setbacks. I couldn't set it right on my neighbor's property line, that it would have to meet some setbacks or something there, a description somewhere as to where you could set it. In other words, you can't set it, you wouldn't be able to put it right out so many feet from the road. You wouldn't be able to put it so many feet from your property line. You'd have to have a time frame that you could use it, and it would have to have legal electricity and septic.
And therein lies the other issue, is that where it's not a permanent structure and you start addressing setbacks to a movable structure, then you get to the, well, can I park my car on the property line? Can I park my moped on the property line, my lawnmower on the property line? And that's where Jim's grappling with this, is that all of the building codes are for permanent structures, or fixed structures. These are movable. So can you apply a setback to a moving vehicle? I don't know that for a fact.
But if you set one of those up permanently, you set it there, you put it on blocks, and it's sitting there permanently, it's been sitting there and occupied for a length of time, to me, that's not a recreational vehicle. That then has been made a permanent structure, even if it's only on blocks.
I think my concern is that you're not so much addressing the fact of how, you probably need to address how long somebody can be living in it, but I think that the concern is more about the health and welfare issues as far as disposal of waste, and because you wouldn't want to stop somebody from having their in-laws come up for the summer and park their RV in your driveway for a month or two, and but I think you'd be just definitely want to address how do they get rid of their waste, or what are they doing about that.
And that, sorry, Phil. I was just going to say, and that, we can address the disposal of waste on the surface of the ground. But unfortunately, in the state of Maine, there's no requirement for you to have running water or a toilet in your house. We still live in a state where you can carry in your waste, you don't carry it in. You carry out your waste, you carry in your water. So we have to, carefully toe the line there, because DHHS doesn't find it necessary to have running water or plumbing in a home. So there's going to be a lot of little details to the ordinance that are going to come up as we try to draft one.
Bill?
We've had one complaint in who knows how many years. This is the only complaint we've had. If codes can address the waste disposal issue, get them to put in an outhouse or something, maybe we should just leave it alone, see where it goes. We've never been bothered. We've had one complaint. Nobody knows how long it's been.
But in a case like that, if they were going to put in an outhouse, do we have something in the ordinance stating where that could be placed?
An outhouse technically is a structure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. The new building codes, since I've stopped being a code officer, it has a minimum square footage that takes it out of a structure. I would assume that an outhouse, Jim would consider that a structure, and that would have to meet the setback requirements from the property lines. But technically, in Maine, you could do that. You could dig a pit and put an outhouse over it, and that's legal in the state of Maine.
Now, what if they wanted to bring in a porta potty?
We don't have any requirements for licensing or regulations of a porta potty, and there again, a porta potty is a portable structure, so I don't believe Jim would enforce setback requirements on a portable.
So they could put it anywhere.
Yeah.
What does that do to property values?
Porta potty?
the surrounding landowner.
A porta potty?
What would that do to the property value of an abutting neighbor?
No, I'm asking, are you talking about a porta potty?
Yeah, a porta potty or somebody living in a camper trailer, people invest in homes. If that's an investment and somebody can just depreciate your property value because they want to, or, I mean, any one of you could have somebody pull up a camper and live in it and do that, and for years, if they wanted to. And depreciate your property value. You go back and reassess surrounding homeowners' properties, the abutting neighbors, and give them a tax break because somebody is living in a camper. I think the potential loss of property value is big. I'd like to have that protection. Would you?
I don't have any problem with it. I think an outhouse should be allowed.
It is. An outhouse
It is, but they don't have one.
And what about a slip trench? I used to be in the military, and we used to dig slip trenches,
In January.
So, but I mean, what you don't like, I may like. So,
But would you like it if they put that trench right next to your well?
probably not.
Yeah.
Well, there's rules for that.
Oh, okay.
Even if it was an outhouse, there's certain setback requirements.
It's gotta be 100 feet, 100 feet from a well.
Okay, all right, so there's
The
rules for
ordinance.
that.
If
So we're
somebody's
going,
just coming out the door with a bucket in their hands, they're not paying attention to any rules.
yeah,
They're throwing whatever they want, your well doesn't matter.
Exactly.
well, that's the issue that we're going to start by addressing that issue with the
Almost
state
certainly.
and see if we can't get that problem solved.
Jim and I were going to actually speak about that today. He had a death in the family. We did talk about it last week, so we have to give Brent a call at the state. He can come down and verify whether or not that's been happening.
I mean, I think that's obviously, to me, that's the most important thing right there, and, we addressed that first step. My other concern is, and I'm okay with, people coming in with a camper, they want to live with a camper, but if a camper is there over years' time, and they're living in there all the time, to me, that becomes a safety issue, because those things they're not made to have that use constantly like that, and becomes probably a fire issue, or, so, I think we ought to look at that. I'm not sure if we want to eliminate them, but I think we ought to, look at that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a structure. I don't think it should be a permanent living quarters.
I believe, just to get back on that, I know at one point there was someone who had come in for a permit, I think it was before you, they had come in for a permit for a mobile home, and it was a park model, and code enforcement said, no, that does not qualify as a mobile home for a year-round structure. It's not insulated, it's not geared, and so they were not able to use a park model. They had to go out and get a trailer, a regular mobile home. One of the things I was wondering about is language in some of the developments that are restrictive as far as, you have deed restrictions. Is there anything that could be worded in the land use ordinance to some effect as far as language on how long something like that can be inhabited for safety reasons? Because like you say, it's a fire hazard to have insulation isn't made for year-round use and things like that. Living in that, so.
Excuse me, it's something that I could definitely look into. I don't know off the top of my head. There should be something that can be, some caveat that can be put into the land use ordinance. Do you have I don't know what the deed restrictions are in the neighborhood in question. So it's kind of hard to tell, but we might be able to integrate something into the regular land use.
Yeah, it's not a development, so there are probably no deed.
There were no deeds, there probably
Oh,
aren't.
no, that's right, that
No.
wasn't.
Right, it's just a law. So.
I mean, it could be, but it's unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, people live in, I mean, I go snowmobiling up north and people live in these things in the wintertime all the time, you know, so, I mean, you can make it work, yeah, it's a little bit cold in there, but we just, from a safety perspective, I think we just wanna make sure that we do this right.
The newer ones are making out of aluminum insulated panels, and the floors are sealed and heated. I mean, they're pretty, you know, you could, if you wanted to. Moisture is an issue in the, you know, in them because they're just not made to breathe like a house is, but I could do some more research to see if there's something the planning board can integrate into their ordinances rather than have a selectmen standalone ordinance, which may be more difficult to enforce. But that's at the will of the board. I'm here to.
I think it's better as a land use ordinance personally, but we ought to address the safety, the EHS stuff, but I think it's better as a land use ordinance rather than having the selectmen put in one of our own. That's just me, but.
How would you do it as a land use?
Well, you have.
Use, you have to either permit it, conditionally permitted, or not permitted, right?
Right.
And then you have to pick zones where it will be permitted, and other zones it won't. I think that's gonna be tough to do.
Well, it's like the ordinance today says that, one residence per lot. So,
right.
So that can change. You can add maybe language in there that says, residence includes, a camper or somebody living in a camper for X amount of days.
And you're circling back to the same issues we've just been talking about. I think it's going to be more difficult as a land use ordinance. I think we ought to do something about it, but I don't like drafting legislation in haste either.
Right, exactly.
We ought to explore it, because I think there are safety issues there, and there's other issues there, and tax issues, property tax issues there. You got two, as you say, two dwellings on one piece of property now. I mean, if you got wheels on it, you can do it. If you put it up on blocks, you can't, and you get taxed for it. I think it should be, explored and discussed, and try to find a way to do it. But
As a standalone.
I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it might be more difficult just trying to integrate it with the land use ordinance.
Do it as a standalone, work on it as a standalone, and we might not,
Planning board has
it might
enough
not
to
have
do.
anything for June, but at least we'll start with the health issues, health and safety issues,
Yep.
and see where that goes.
Those have already begun to be addressed.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that at the beginning, and I don't believe that was brought to my attention at the beginning, or I would have called Brent at the state immediately, because I've dealt with him on issues like that before. Anything that gets dumped on the surface of the ground that doesn't belong there, Department of Health and Human Services will take care of that, because that's a big no-no. We can't live together in a functional society if people are disposing of waste on the surface of the ground. So Brent will come down and address that issue. And the reason we do that is the state has a little more pull than a local code enforcement officer when it comes to the enforcement of the subsurface wastewater rule, because they just attack it right at the head. So we're going to talk to Brent, have that taken care of. I would hate to, like Tom said, hastily draft an ordinance so that we can make it in time for this year's town meeting, but Tad and I will do some research, and we'll see what we can do that can effectively alleviate the problem here, and also at the same time allowing the seasonal places that we have an exemption. In this case, they give a permit. If you're going to be more than 7 days in the camper, you need to have a permit from the building department. We can figure something out, work that language through with the selectmen, and get something to the public that can address the problem.
Okay. Anything else on that item?
I just have a quick clarification. So just to be clear, this is just a one-time complaint, this isn't an ongoing issue, but because of the complaint, you're saying you need something in place?
It's an ongoing issue in a single location.
Okay.
So we haven't received multiple complaints. It's a single location that has been dealing with this for quite some time.
Okay, and because there's nothing in place, you need to get something in place, but DHS is going to handle it?
The disposal of the waste on the surface of the ground, yes.
Okay.
All right, next one is Eastern Trail.
I've had one conversation, I have yet to have another. I do plan to do that with Ms. Young. I think that at this point in time, it would be best to try to ease into that situation, I think, because trying to force anything down the pipe wouldn't go over well. Located a few real estate appraisals. I'm waiting to hear back as to what it'll cost us to have a real estate appraisal performed. We have to gain access to the property, permission to get out there and do the appraisal or get a ballpark as close to accurate as possible. I had emailed a few times with Miss Young. Didn't really seem very receptive to just a parking lot there, but I think I picked up on a few things she said in her conversation that I could probably use to try to persuade her to at least consider it. It's kind of difficult to have a conversation with her, so now that she has her computer back, I can email back and forth with her, and I will hopefully be able to make some sort of progress, and hopefully can set something up so that you can be with PDN. And we'll try to move this forward. I explained to her exactly what it was we were discussing. I explained to her exactly why her property was the property that we thought was the best for the location. She did bring up that crossing. The crossing would have to be addressed, would have to be more visible, maybe put in some push-button, solar-powered blinking lights or something where the crossing is for the safety of the crossing public. But I didn't get shut down completely and told that I was crazy and go away. So I think that we can have a conversation, and I'm hoping I can get in touch with her, get her to respond to me so that we can set something up there.
Yeah, I think we just, we need to keep moving, right? I mean, we've had this discussion for over a year, before I was on the board, and I just want to make sure that we keep,
Absolutely.
keep working on it.
Absolutely.
Has there been any movement on the committee for fundraising or anything?
Nothing. Volunteering, no.
I guess, I don't. Absolutely.
So then we need to go back to agenda item 6G and see what, I know that we need to draft language for, I would name it Article 20B. Simone, is there a problem with letters after a warrant article, or should I renumber all of these? Should we renumber them all?
Probably the best to number them. Because as long as you're not moving you need to be more concerned with the Article 5 and 14.
Correct.
But I think, it's probably clearer
I will get clarification from the attorney tomorrow morning about how to go about that default warrant article, because if the library is funded at $12,000, we won't need the next article. I will address that. I will correct the revenue. And if there are no other corrections, I would maybe recommend that the board approve the warrant with the exception of an article pertaining to a scholarship account for the library, and approve that so that can go off to the printer. I will draft that other article as soon as I can get back in touch tomorrow morning and try to have that. If we need to have a special meeting, are you going to write it down, Donna? What's it going to say?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would the scholarship account apply to any library or specifically the Kennebunk Free Library?
Taken out completely, right?
Any library.
Who's any?
This is library access.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to be, that'll be the toughest part, is to get that wording correct.
Yeah.
But if the rest of the warrant looks okay, I will draft that and either call a special meeting to approve the language, or we can approve it by, I don't think we want to email it around and approve it that way.
So is it the board's recommendation budget board's recommendation that we don't appropriate $12,000, that we do the $350 instead?
Correct.
Okay. Somewhere I missed that when I looked at it.
And I can't create that removed off the top of my head right now, so.
I missed that on Article 28, Tom, when we did that has to be the,
What did we do?
yeah,
Oh,
98. So we wouldn't be able to do that. So it's only those two articles. That one article, the number needs to be, Article 28, that top number needs to be corrected.
I can correct that, no problem. It's
Yeah.
the
Article 20 needs to be,
language for the library in the
Yeah.
event that it doesn't pass.
so you're going to leave Article 20 at $12,000, and it will say that the Board of Selectmen has no recommendation, and the Budget Board recommends $350. And then
The
Article...
budget board recommends 0 for that, I think. Right?
The budget board is recommending 0.
0, okay.
And in the event that it remains 0,
Yeah.
the budget board wanted to make sure that there was some money for those who needed the money through scholarship for a library.
So that would be Article 21, that shall the town vote to raise and appropriate 300.
The selectmen board made no recommendation.
Right.
Not
Okay.
yet.
If we have another article in there, 21, that the budget board, that shall the town vote to raise or appropriate the sum of $350 to be placed in a reserve account to be used for families in need of library access without the means to purchase one of their own. That article would also have no recommendation from the selectmen, but the budget board recommends $350. Is that the way it would be worded? Okay.
Yeah, and it would start with if Article 20,
If you want to approve something to that effect,
Yeah,
then we can approve this warrant tonight. I can have that language drafted to reflect exactly what you said. Simone, did you write down what Donna just said?
It's right there, I mean, she just read there.
She just read shall the town vote to,
raise and appropriate the amount of $3. Oh, well, it probably, something in there should say, should Article 20,
I mean, I don't think you have to say that,
No.
because the town actually could pass both of them.
yeah.
yeah.
so you just, so the town could vote to do 12,000 and also vote
So
to
the
put...
350, so we can go to other libraries, because the 12,000 here is just for,
Kennybunk.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So Article 21 would be, again, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350?
For the reserve account.
place in reserve accounts.
To be placed in a reserve account to pay for,
Families in need of
Yeah.
library access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly like it's written.
yeah, eligibility will be based upon the town of
for
Arundel General Assistance Guidelines.
Yep, okay.
And that would be Article 21. And the rest will just get moved.
Did you catch that, Sam? So,
Yeah.
in the event that they agree with the warrant, can they motion to approve the warrant as amended and discussed? And then we can write that, make sure that the language is,
But they won't sign the warrant till the next meeting, or?
Well, actually, we probably, if we
Let's
get
sign
it,
it, let's get right here, just to move, approve it at the next meeting and sign it then.
yeah, we'll sign it then. If we can, we'll still be able to send it off.
yeah,
All right.
Oh, wait, that's right, you said you had to send it off this Wednesday to the printer?
Friday, last Friday.
Oh, that's right.
yeah,
Shoot now, this Wednesday.
yeah.
So, yeah, so what we've talked about tonight, then, that can go to the printer.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful.
So do we
Yes,
the motion on me? I'll make the motion.
Did you do that?
We approve it as amended. And we'll sign this.
Okay,
I'll
Yes.
second.
all right. All in favor? Okay. I'll get that taken care of. That's easy. Any other business? Anything we forgot? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? There you go.